Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into the sources so you get the crucial insights. Today, we're tackling a massive one, World War I. This wasn't just another war. It completely changed the map, brought down empires, and really set the course for the whole 20th century. So our mission here is to figure out, how did something this huge even start? What made it so incredibly destructive? And maybe the biggest question, why does it still matter so much to you right now in the world we live in?
It really does. It's striking how events from over a century ago still cast such a long shadow. World War I isn't just history locked away in books. It basically forged the modern world, drawing borders and creating tensions we still feel today.
Okay, let's get into it. Every fire needs a spark, right? And for World War I, that spark was very specific. June 28, 1914, Sarajevo. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist, pulled the trigger. A single shocking moment. But how does one assassination lead to a world war? I mean, were things already that unstable?
That's exactly the point. The assassination was the spark, yes, but the tinder was already piled high. It spiraled so quickly because of this incredibly complicated and fragile system of alliances that already existed. Austria-Hungary wanted to punish Serbia, blame them for the attack.
Okay.
Russia then stepped in to back Serbia, partly because of treaties, partly Slavic ties. That immediately brought Germany into it because they were allied with Austria-Hungary.
Right.
Then France, allied with Russia, started mobilizing its troops.
So everyone's getting pulled in.
Exactly. And the final piece, really, for Britain was when Germany invaded neutral Belgium.
Why Belgium?
It was part of their plan, the Schlieffen Plan, to quickly knock out France by going through Belgium. Britain had guaranteed Belgian neutrality, so that act brought them into the war.
Wow. So it was like dominoes falling, triggered by these pre-existing agreements.
Precisely. A regional crisis blew up into a global war almost overnight because the diplomatic brakes just failed under the pressure of these military alliances.
And once those alliances locked everyone in, the war took on this horrifying reality, especially on the Western Front. We hear about trench warfare, this brutal stalemate. Can you even picture it? Living for years in mud, rats, disease, constant shelling. It sounds almost unbearable. But why did they keep doing it? Why these massive attacks? If the lines barely moved, the human cost was enormous.
It's a grim picture, and it raises questions about military thinking at the time. Technology for defense, like machine guns and barbed wire, had outpaced offensive tactics, but the commanders were often stuck in this mindset of attrition. They believed that if they just kept throwing enough men at the enemy, eventually they'd break through.
Attrition, basically trying to bleed the other side dry.
Essentially, yes, and the scale was just unprecedented. Look at battles like the Somme or Verdun. Each one cost over 1 million casualties, 1 million lives, often for gains measured in yards, not miles.
1 million.
Yeah.
It's hard to even process that number.
And it went on for years. This was industrial war. Whole nations mobilized, the lines between soldier and civilian blurring. It demanded a level of societal commitment, of resources, of lives that was just terrifyingly new. The death toll itself became almost normalized in the strategy.
It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And you mentioned global conflict earlier. It wasn't just contained in Europe, was it? How did it spread so far?
That's a crucial point. We often focus on the Western Front, but this was truly a world war. Remember, the major European powers, Britain, France, Germany, they had huge colonial empires.
Right, across Africa, Asia.
Exactly. And these colonies weren't just bystanders. They were pulled in, providing resources and, importantly, troops. So you had soldiers from India, from Senegal, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, fighting and dying on European battlefields, or in the Middle East or Africa.
So men from all over the world were caught up in this European fight.
Absolutely. It touched nearly every corner of the globe. And then a major turning point came in 1917.
That's when the U.S. got involved.
Yes. The United States had tried to stay neutral, but several things pushed them in. Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare was a big one, sinking ships, including American ones.
Like the Lusitania, though that was earlier.
Right, the cumulative effect mattered. And then there was the Zimmerman telegram.
The message trying to get Mexico to attack the U.S.
Precisely. Germany proposed an alliance with Mexico against the U.S. When that became public, it caused outrage. So the U.S. declared war in April 1917, and the arrival of fresh American troops, plus American industry ramping up, it gave the Allies a huge boost.
Just when they desperately needed it, after years of grinding war.
Exactly. It significantly shifted the balance of power and really helped pave the way for the end.
Which brings us to 1918. Germany, after pouring everything into failed offensives, was just spent, exhausted. The Allies, now reinforced, launched a major push, the 100 Days Offensive. And finally, on November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the guns stopped. The armistice was signed. The fighting was over.
The fighting stopped, yes. But creating a lasting peace, that turned out to be incredibly difficult. The Treaty of Versailles, signed the next year in 1919, is probably one of the most debated peace treaties ever.
Why so controversial?
Well, fundamentally, it placed pretty much all the blame for the war squarely on Germany, the war guilt clause.
Okay.
And based on that, it imposed incredibly harsh conditions, huge financial reparations payments that Germany simply couldn't realistically afford.
Crippling their economy.
Severely damaging it for years, yes. Plus, Germany lost significant territory, colonies, and had strict limits placed on its military.
So the aim was to prevent Germany from ever starting another war.
That was the stated aim, certainly for France. But many historians argue the treaty was too punitive, that the humiliation, the economic hardship, it actually created deep resentment in Germany. And that resentment, that instability, arguably helped create the conditions for extremism to rise later on, leading eventually towards World War II.
So the seeds of the next war were sown in the peace treaty of the first one.
It's a strong argument, yes. The peace was flawed and its consequences were profound.
Which leads us to the legacy. What did World War I leave behind? How does it still shape our world? Well, you mentioned warfare itself changing. We saw the first tanks, didn't we? Chemical weapons.
Yeah.
Airplanes used in combat.
Absolutely. It was a brutal laboratory for military technology. Tanks were developed to break the trench stalemate. Poison gas was used horrifically by both sides. And aircraft went from reconnaissance tools to bombers and fighters. These technologies fundamentally changed how wars would be fought forever.
And politically. You mentioned empires collapsing.
Yes, the geopolitical map was completely redrawn. Four massive, centuries-old empires vanished. The Austro-Hungarian, the Ottoman, the Russian, though that was also due to revolution, and the German Empire.
Gone.
Just like that.
Replaced by new countries, especially in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Think of Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, borders drawn, often creating new problems.
So new nations were born, but maybe old tensions didn't disappear. Precisely. Ethnic groups were sometimes split by new borders or forced together uncomfortably. Many conflicts in the 20th century, and even some today, have roots in those post-WWI settlements.
And just socially.
Yeah.
The impact on people, seeing death on that scale.
It left an indelible scar. The sheer scale of industrialized killing was unimaginable before 1914. Millions dead, millions more wounded, physically and psychologically. It profoundly changed how people saw war, heroism, government, even progress itself. There was a deep disillusionment, a sense that the old world had failed.
The lost generation.
Exactly. It fueled social change, art, literature. Everything was touched by the experience of this industrial-scale death. Societies had to grapple with loss on a scale never seen before.
So looking back, World War I really wasn't an ending. It feels more like the violent birth of the modern era.
I think that's a very good way to put it. It didn't resolve things cleanly. It unleashed forces and created problems that shaped the rest of the 20th century and beyond. And that's why understanding it, how it started, why it was so devastating, what came after is really vital for you to make sense of the complexities of the world you're living in right now.
So a final thought for everyone listening.
Consider this. A century ago, one assassination, combined with rigid alliances and military plans, unraveled the world. What seemingly small events, or maybe what underlying tensions or rigid systems today, might hold a similar potential for massive, unforeseen global consequences. It's something worth thinking about.